So, Nic Cage has developed a bit of a reputation over the course of his acting career. The man has just been in a ton of movies. Looking at his IMDb list, you come to realize that the old College Humor sketch where he never says no to any script is probably close to reality. This is a pretty interesting situation. From a purely economic perspective, I get it. Cage likes making money, and he's a big enough name to help the crappy movie he's in at least break even. This strategy is hardly new, especially with older, well-established actors who aren't bothered by being in a few critical flops. But Nic Cage, of course, shakes things up a bit, especially when you look at these movies through a critical lens. He's a big Hollywood leading man with some of the strangest acting instincts I've ever seen. His performances are usually anything but traditional, and the films where he is more reserved feel somehow less natural than when he's freaking out. Now don't get me wrong, I think Cage is a good actor. The caveat being that he needs to be in a movie or working with a director that can use him correctly. And that brings us to Mandy, a little movie from Panos Cosmatos that uses Nic Cage to his full potential. Mandy is about a couple that lives in happy seclusion being targeted by cultist demon biker things and defeating evil with the power of love. Just kidding, it's a revenge story. Small spoiler here, but the trailer and movie name pretty much give away that Mandy, Nic Cage's partner, is killed by the cultists. And of course Nic Cage, or Red, sets out to kill them right back. And off we go on an adventure of blood, gore, drugs, tigers, and chainsaw duels. It's the most metal movie I've seen in a long time, and I'm so happy it exists. Half of the movie is bathed in reds and purples, and the score is full of synths and doom metal. The world it's in has this sort of heightened realism that feels like it could be in a music video for one of those bands that only wears robes and likes to sing about wizards and Norse gods and stuff. It even throws in some spooky animated dream sequences for good measure. This aesthetic and tone makes Nic Cage's performance feel somehow grounded compared to the rest of the film. His tendency to overact and make his eyes go all wide feels right at home in this world. Like the actions his character is taking are kind of rational. This stood out to me the most in the scene after the cultists kill Mandy right in front of him. It's a pretty brutal affair. They leave him for dead and he manages to escape, heading into his house to treat his wounds and plan whatever he's about to do next. So we get to see Cage in a tiger shirt and his underwear, covered in blood, chugging vodka, and screaming in anguish. If you've never seen this movie, this probably sounds like I'm describing one of his goofy scenes that you find in those YouTube Nic Cage freakout compilations. You know, the not the bees scene, him yelling the alphabet in Vampire's Kiss. But in the context of Mandy, this freakout is totally justified. You aren't laughing at Cage in this scene, you're empathizing. The first half of Mandy plays it really slow, building up the relationship between Mandy and Red, introducing how crazy this cult is, and dialing up the dread until it takes a violent, ridiculous turn after Cage has his moment. And I can honestly say there isn't another actor I can picture giving a better performance in this scene. It's tailor-made for Nic Cage. His casting was essential. Like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, Michael Keaton in Birdman, or Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Cage spends the rest of the film playing a man who has become almost completely unhinged, and based on what's happened to him, you can't really blame his character for wanting revenge. Is it a bit of an excuse just to have some truly gruesome fight scenes? Of course it is. If you aren't someone who enjoys this sort of thing, the setup in the first half probably won't change your mind. But, as someone who is definitely interested in that sort of thing, I love what Cosmatos has done with this movie. The violence gets a little crazy and a little campy, but he manages to ride the line between emotional tragedy and cathartic action really well. Choosing this metal fantasy look was a really good choice, since most of the art that falls into those genres is a little campy in its own right. The reason I'm saying all this is to show that while I think Nic Cage's performance is wonderful and that he should get credit for that, a good director and writer will do what they can to reach a sort of synergy with their leads. You know how Cage is going to be, so build some of your movie around that. Make the film look as angry and unraveled as Cage's acting can feel. Put him in situations where his weaknesses become strengths. That's one thing I love about movies. The idea of so many people, hundreds of artists all working towards a goal, is a really special thing. All the moving parts have to come together perfectly to make something worth watching, and I think Mandy is that and then some. Thanks for watching.